Our city council meeting today. We appreciate everyone for being here and your participation. Sorry we're a few minutes behind. We've seemed to get pretty good at running lengthy executive meetings. And so appreciate your patience. We will move forward here by officially calling ourselves to order. And I'm going to ask here if you guys would please rise. We should have Mr. Doug Gim coming up here to lead us in the invocation, and afterwards we'll do the pledges.
You know, as I got ready for this, I read this it's a prayer George Washington prayed, and I can't think of anything better. And this is what he said: I now make it my earnest prayer that God would have you and the state over which you preside in his holy protection, that he would incline the hearts of the citizens to cultivate a spirit of subordination and obedience to government, to entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another, for their fellow citizens and the United States at large, and particularly for their brethren who have served in the field. And finally, that he would most graciously be pleased to dispose of us all, to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and pacific temper of mind, which were the characteristics of the divine author of our blessed religion. And without an humble irritation of those example in those things, we can never hope to be. Without a humble imitation of those things, we can never hope to be a happy nation. Romans 13, God put it this way: let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities have been established by God. And Father, we do come before you, and we invite you into this place. Pray that you would give wisdom and discernment, that we would humbly come before you and bend our knee to government and to support government, and it is your authority that you've given them. So bless them in making those decisions. Bless the city and the citizens of Amarillo. We pray for all the first responders, Lord, that you would protect them and guide them. And I ask for all of that in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, sir. If you guys join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag, if you would, please.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, we've got one announcement here. Mr. Hartman, if you come up and take that one on number 5.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Simpson has a special announcement that he'd like to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. Mayor, I just wanted to let you know I became aware of something that I wanted to bring up, and I thought I would go ahead and do this now. Not sure if it's the right format or whether this should be a future agenda item, but and I know you like to operate in transparency, so I thought bringing this up in open session would be the best way to do that. And while I could attempt to describe what I'm talking about, I do have some photos that I'd like to show today that can kind of give a better idea of what I wanted to bring up. And I'm not sure what's going on here, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. But the next slide, you'll see kind of a close-up of this.
Yep.
And, just wondering kind of what was going on here. But if you go to the next slide, it looks things went well. I thought, it was good, you're holding the ring. But then the next slides is kind of a sequence of slides where there appears to be your opponent is like hitting you with something, and the guy behind there was really laughing, but you're down. So I don't know. Do you not take a beating enough for your day job, or is this a stress reliever? You got a different career going? I just wondered if you wanted to share with us a little bit about that.
So, in a minute I can explain myself. Up front, I'd like to, just profess my disappointment for Council Member Place 4 over here for not putting the live action video up with the full sound effects. So, I'll just want to let everybody know that chair has not been the same since it hit me. It hadn't quite sat right, and I mean, I did a number on it. And so, Yeah, you're seeing me really try and sell everything that you've got to sell in honor of that WWF spirit, right? It's the old Route 66. So I know that you guys have never been more proud of your mayor in the professional way that I conduct myself. So you're welcome.
Well, proud wasn't the word I was thinking of, but yeah, that'll go. I didn't know if an important issue. I don't know if any of the other council members had anything you wanted to ask or say before we move on. Or
No, this is an announcement, so not an open discussion. Thank you, Councilman Simpson. We won't have public comment over my wrestling prowess.
okay,
So,
well, congratulations. Looks like things went well.
All I know is next year I'll do better now that I've got my rookie debut out of the way. But it was for the kids. It was for the kids. You blame it on that anytime you as a grown man act like a youth. You say it was for the kids. So no, Councilman Simpson keeps us right in step in here. So yeah, thanks for that. There were some other photos that you probably left out, and I appreciate
There were,
that.
but we're meeting again in 2 weeks. So.
Yes. Keep them coming. Man, at the risk of asking if there's any other announcements, Mr. Hartman, because you didn't list what that announcement was. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So at this time, we're going to move forward with public comment. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. City Secretary, if you wouldn't mind taking it over.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for participating in today's City Council meeting. Your input and your opinions are important to us, and we're glad that you're here to share them today. At each posted meeting, we invite our fellow community members to address City Council regarding posted agenda items or topics related to city policy. Every speaker today will have 3 minutes to address the council. At the end of 2.5 minutes, you'll hear a warning beep alerting you that you have 30 seconds left to wrap up your thoughts. We do have some public hearings today, so if you're here to speak on an item with a public hearing, we would ask that you speak on that item either during public comment or during the public hearing, but not both, in order to help us keep accurate minutes. It's your choice at which point you would like to speak. When you come to the microphone today, please state your name and whether or not you live within the Amarillo city limits. We have 4 speakers today. The first one is Bob Yalamanchili, and I don't believe I see Mr. Yalamanchili in the room. In which case, we will move on to James Allen. On deck after James will be Nathan Smith.
Good afternoon. Mayor, Council, I'm here to discuss the continued willful neglect of infrastructure maintenance by the City of Amarillo. Since I last spoke to you on this subject, has the Council asked for a formal briefing on this subject matter from the staff? If not, I would like to know why the city staff has not addressed this need. Why has the EPA identified health and safety issues? North Heights is over 100 years old and has not had any meaningful infrastructure upgrades done in the neighborhood. Mr. Hartman has prepared a 10-year upgrade plan that would in part alleviate some of the deficient issues. Instead, he has given you a budget to consider that, in his words, has higher priorities than the needs of North Heights residents. It is painfully obvious that the city staff and previous elected officials do not care about the taxpayers of North Heights. Each of you was elected to represent every citizen in our city. Are you going to uphold that responsibility? If so, require the city staff to place the first year of the plan in this year's budget and approve it. Mayor, we had a conversation and you made the comment that you wish there was enough money to help North Heights. As leaders, you make the hard decisions. Allocate the funds, and perhaps your neighborhoods, council members, should be the ones that wait for the services, just like North Heights residents have waited for over 60 years. Councilman Sherlin, I wanted to personally thank you for coming to the historical marker dedication for Matthew Bones Hooks on Juneteenth. This talk is appropriate because Texas refused to release slaves for 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln because of economic greed and racial hate. Look at the irony that the city of Amarillo has done the same thing to North Heights for a much longer time period. Council, are you going to change the narrative? Which side of history will your legacy fall? Mr. Hartman, North Heights residents are still waiting for you to formally present the plan to them. Gentlemen, I will see you again in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have a different discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Nathan Smith, and after Nathan Smith, Jacob Meyer.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I won't take much of your time today. I'm just here to thank 4 of the 5 of you for not dictating to us and letting the population potentially have a vote to determine if we think my daughters should be incubators. Our daughters, my daughters. I'm a bit selfish. Oh, also thank you, Tom. Like, you brought up a point when you were arguing that I completely mislooked because I had tunnel vision focusing on my daughter. That whole, how is this going to affect our corporations? I didn't think of that at all. That was beautiful, man. I appreciated that. Anyway, y'all have a wonderful day. Hopefully this thing goes to vote, and I will be voting then. If not, I'm going to get out of Texas. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Jacob Meyer.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. My name is Jacob Meyer. I do reside within the city limits of Amarillo. You may know me as the president of the Amarillo Area Young Republicans. I think I misspoke a couple of weeks ago when I initially gave my speech. So had y'all voted on the ordinance, in favor of it, it would have actually fulfilled party platform planks 194J, 194L, and 53. I think I miscited the first 2, so my notes were all jumbled, and I was due for an eye appointment, so I sincerely apologize for that. Just wanted to issue that correction. And, yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Stanley, that concludes the sign-ups for public comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. City Secretary. Do I have anyone else here today that would like to offer public comment before we move on with our meeting? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment, move on to item number 7. So 7A is a review of agenda items. Council, do I have anything that you guys need before we move into 7B?
No, sir.
Okay. Item 7B, Mr. Randy Plumley. If we can have you come forward. Nope. You don't look like Randy. You look more like a Donnie.
Yeah, I want to give him a brief introduction so that council kind of understands what Randy is doing here. City of Amarillo Building Safety Department is responsible, obviously, for a wide range of things that they have to inspect on a daily basis, both in commercial, residential. That includes electrical, plumbing, foundations, all the things that Mr. Stanley is fully aware of. But there's another piece of that too. In areas, other cities are struggling with the new energy code, which we have not adopted yet. This would be either the 21 code or the 24 code. We're still under the 2015 code. But in that process of looking at that, and we know that we're in favor of moving forward with adopting an energy code, as we need to do that, there's some pieces in there that we have to address as far as third-party inspections, or are we going to have inspectors within the city that can do that we currently do not have qualified for that. So we reached out several months ago to Mr. Plumley. He is actually a contractor that works for the state with his company named Spear, and they are a nonprofit. So it doesn't cost us anything to have him here as a consultant, and he has met with us several times to explain the process for third-party inspections, to explain the process internally of what we need to do to gear up for third-party inspections, or to take that on internally within the city of Amarillo. So what we wanted to do in the name of transparency is just put him before you to kind of give a brief overview of what we're looking at as far as adopting that code in the near future and what some of the challenges would be with that. And so with that said, also Johnny is here as well that can answer questions at the end, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Plumley and let him give you a presentation.
Thank you, Donnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, thank you. You'll have to apologize for my voice. This happened last time I left Amarillo. Not sure why. Have to have surgery to correct it. So I'm here to represent SPEAR. We're a nonprofit, as he had just said. So I'm going to talk real briefly on kind of the pathways through code. We're talking about the 2021. I've got the code book that's here. We've discussed it. I know you guys are at the 15. So SPEAR is actually a nonprofit that covers Texas and Oklahoma. So I visit cities throughout Texas. So from third-party standpoint, so as the energy code gets more complex, there are many pathways through the code. So there's electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, but with the energy code, it's a little bit different. So as you see on here, we've got prescriptive. I've put on here the softwares that you can use for compliance up to the energy code. But for prescriptive, you have ResCheck, which is a free software online. You have code book tables, checklists, and book requirements. But then you have a total UA trade-off alternative, which is a ResCheck, and also a software called RimRate and Ecotrope. Then you get into performance modeling, which I'm from North Central Texas. Most of the cities around there, the builders and national builders use performance modeling. That kind of steps out of the realm of just doing visual inspections. It brings into it with envelope testing, HVAC ductwork testing, mechanical ventilation testing. But with that performance, you've also got ERI. And in Texas, we also have a HERS, which stands for the Home Energy Rating System. We also have Energy Star as also a compliance pathway through Texas. No, there's not very many cities or states throughout the country that has this many pathways through the energy code. So it gets complex for city building officials to actually be able to visually inspect for the compliance of energy code. There's also a North Central Texas COG, which is the Council of Government. They actually rewrite their code as well. And there's a lot of cities in North Central Texas that actually adopts the energy code for that. It's an easier pathway for the builders to get through, so it cuts down on cost. Third-party energy verification. So what I'm here to speak about is there's organizations such as ResNet Energy Systems, it's Residential Energy Systems Network. There's BPI, which is Building Performance Institute. There's a new one in Texas called BSI, which is the Building Science Institute, and then the IECC, which is just doing the code compliance. But through those, it's a third-party energy verification organizations. Through that, you have providers. These are people that actually have their own businesses. So they hire and train the raters to do the inspections. They're not there to replace the inspectors for cities. They're there to work in partnership with the cities. So they're there to do the visual inspections for compliance. They do the testing. They give the forms to the city at the end. With their signature, they're assuming liability for compliance to the energy code. So with the ResNet, you actually have different types and different certifications that are allowed from ResNet. There's a residential rating field inspector. There's a home energy rating, home energy rater. It's called a HERS rater. There's also HERS energy modelers. So if you're doing an energy code compliance for the city, you need construction documents. With those construction documents, you have software that builds permit request documents. So the third parties can actually do that. They build a model to model the home for energy compliance. It's based on an annual consumption of energy. But with that, they're turned in through the city for permit requests. BSI has their own. BPI has their own. IECC has their own. All of these follow a standard 3-year expiration date. So once you're certified, you have 3 years to either renew or retake the test. So ResNet, BPI, and BSI, they're broken down into different organizations, providers, verifiers, raters, but all of them are subject to QA, QC oversight. So it's not just someone using their own business to do what they think is best with the energy code. It's actually subject to QA, QC oversight. So there's 10% of field work done, or 1% of field work and 10% of file that actually gets QC, QA by their organization. And organizations communicate directly to providers. Provider only communicates to verifiers and raters. If you guys have a question, if I'm going too fast, let me know. But what I try to tell cities as well is energy inspectors and energy rating verifiers need to be treated as a standard contractor. So where that comes into play is with the city, you can use them for city revenue with fees for registration as a contractor, but it's also for the permit techs or plan reviewers to verify that the certifications are still good and active and not expired. Certifications should be verified either on an annual basis. There's some cities in Texas that do it on an annual basis. Some do it on a 3-year basis based on their renewal certificates. So with a third-party contract, they're actually paid by the builder, not by the city. They're paid by the builders. So builders basically, they actually use the third parties to keep them up to date for code requirements. That's also local amended codes. They run energy cost analysis. So a lot of times you'll hear the HBA say how much more costly it's going to be to do an energy code. That can be true if you only follow one pathway. But an energy rater or energy verifier can run different simulations and different models to get them to the best cost-effective means of construction to be compliant with the energy code. They build energy models for the permit and permit requests. They do phased inspection to ensure compliance. Then they assume the liability for those compliance. They're considered an approved agency, so it is up to the code official having jurisdiction to approve each of those agencies. I'm going to kind of spout off some code language here, but R104, it's talking about inspections. It says, construction or work which has to have a permit is required and subject to inspection by a code official or his or her designated agent. So that's where a third party comes in. But it also talks about what is an approved inspection agency. So the code official has authority to accept reports of third-party inspection agencies not affiliated with building, design, or construction. They provide agencies that are approved as from qualifications, reliability, and reliant to building codes and systems they are inspected. So third-party providers also do training for third-party verifiers. So they make sure on a consistent basis that they get CEUs, they get renewal for their certifications, they're up on the latest codes. And then as far as testing goes, there's blower door testing, which is envelope testing. There's duct testing, which ensures that the ducts are tested and air sealed. But we're required by the code official, testing shall be conducted by an approved third party, and a written report of the results shall be signed by the party conducting the test and provided to the code official. So again, it goes back to the language of approved third party. It's up to the building official to actually make that determination as to who's approved. And then, of course, in the definition, an approved is the approval by the code official as a result of investigation and tests conducted by him or her, or design or reason of accepting principles or tests that are on a nationally recognized organization, such as ResNet, BPI, IECC or ICC organization, or BSI as well. So energy analysis, that's always done. I won't go through all of this language, but it's basically building a referenced model in the software to model how the house is being constructed. And then it's up to the third parties or the code officials to verify that that home is being built to compliance on how it was permitted. So what I find in Texas going to different cities is they've laid the groundwork for all the third parties and for the compliance reports and for the compliance letters, but they're not in touch with what third parties do, and they don't verify that those inspections are being done. So a city looks at it from one compliance standpoint, which is basically a visual inspection of the energy code compliance. But if the home has been permitted through the city as HERS or Energy Star or a performance model, now it's up to a third party to verify that compliance. Items that are verified by third party: blower door, duct blaster. With Energy Star, it's bath fans, kitchen exhaust. Now the 2021 brings in mechanical ventilation testing is now required for compliance. Room-to-room air balancing for Energy Star, HVAC, static pressure for Energy Star, HVAC installation grading. So not only is it insulated, it's how well did the contractor do the installation. That's part of what an energy rater does. The model's based on how well materials are installed. And then also HVAC installation for how well it's installed from mechanicals. There is a 45L tax credit for builders. So if builders build an Energy Star certified home, they are subject to get $2,500 per house back. Sorry for my voice. But they have to follow Energy Star now. That used to just be part of the tax code. You just had to build an energy efficient home. Now it's tied to the 45L, is now tied to Energy Star certifications. They can even get $5,000 back a house if they build a net zero ready home, which you have one in your community that was built to a net zero ready, and I believe he was spotlighted in a national level for how well he did his net zero ready home. So he's receiving a $5,000 credit back for the home. So any questions on that? I know that was quick.
Questions for Randy, gentlemen? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, Randy, if it's really for you, but is this if we adopt the 2021 code?
So technically, no. Third-party energy verifiers have been around since 2009 Energy Code. But the way that the city of Amarillo and other cities throughout Texas has amended the code, they removed the requirement of testing, which allows the building official to do visual inspections. So that removes the need for a third party. But if a builder is permitting through HERS or Energy Star, then that now has to have a third-party verifier to do the compliance testing.
Okay. So, Donnie, I mean, are we looking at that? I mean, it was kind of thrown out there, you know, we're at the 15, but you made a comment about needing to move to the 2021, or?
Yeah, we do. And we actually have some builders in the community and some actual residents in the community that are wanting this as well. They want to know that when they get an energy efficient home built, that it's actually been tested and gone through the process. So we're just really kind of in the infancy stages of looking at this, but I know this is something that Mayor Stanley brought up to us and brought to our attention too, that kind of got us moving in the right direction toward this. So I think there's a want in the community for it as well, and there's a want in the building community. And then there's some that don't as well, too.
That was my next question.
Some that don't.
Do we have some that don't?
And that's typical, and I think you're going to see that. I think we're just being transparent. You're going to see in the Texas Panhandle, maybe the Oklahoma Panhandle, somewhere in these areas here that you're going to get a lot of resistance. The city of Lubbock just recently approved the 21 code and went to that, but they did it with great amendments, and Randy and I were talking about that this morning, that they made a lot of amendments to that to fit their area, and I think that's what we would do here as well. We have a commission that we would take this to as well that Johnny deals with all the time, and he could probably speak more intelligently than I can about it, but they would have great input into this, as most of those people that are on that board serve in our community as electricians and plumbers and builders and things like that.
Because there's some things in there that just really don't seem to make sense.
Yeah, and I think we would definitely go through that. And
we can amend that to fit our city.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, great.
Unless I'm saying that wrong.
No, you said it right.
Okay.
And the one thing I'll add to that real quick is, so Texas is still under a home rule, so the cities have the right to adopt and amend and however they see fit. But there are government organizations and government-funded organizations such as HUD, which has actually updated their code requirements from a 2009 to a 21, and it's an unamended code.
Oh, wow.
So I met with your development services this morning, and I met with the Lubbock HUD department as well. So if you have new construction coming on board that's receiving HUD funding, it will have to adhere to a 2021 unamended code, even if the city's adopted it and amended it.
Wow. Okay.
So that's kind of where we're going with kind of doing the talks with the cities is it's coming on a federal level. Not to say that it's overreach, but if you've got funding from the national government, they're going to actually up the energy codes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any other questions for Randy? So, Randy, just a couple things, because I was engaged in this one on the front end. Third-party inspection capability does a lot more than just this one energy code piece. And so there's still a great benefit in how our building community and developers and business owners get to work hand in hand with our building safety department with that customer service piece, because it does put a little more authority in that design professional's hands. So, if we're talking about structural, we have something that's designed structurally. That structural engineer could be that third-party inspector that stamps that, signs off on that. We were trying to apply that same mechanism to the energy rating because the building community gets hung up in a lot of standards. Well, it's got to be 12 inches thick. Well, it only had to be 6 inches last year, and now we're moving to 12, and I show 0 efficiencies. My R factor doesn't change. So it's very difficult for that builder to justify that additional cost to an owner, and so your performance model basis changes that, because now we have the overall envelope and how it performs. And so if we're able to show, well, this envelope cost $1,000 more, but it performs 25% more efficient, then there's an ROI on that I think consumers can participate in willingly. It's where the IECC or maybe some of the federal regulations come in and say, these are the prescriptions and the prescriptive values of everything, and you will comply, and we can't either meet that because construction doesn't allow for it, or there's no return on that investment up front. So what we're trying to do is get out in front of it, and really I think we have a building chief that is willing to leave us as long as it makes sense at the 2015 codes and standards, with the forward-looking ideas that this 2021 is coming, and we would be better to adopt it in an amended form where we could make it fit our community rather than ignoring it until something gets handed down maybe from the state or whatever. And so the third party, I definitely can see the benefit in. I also think it brings some other professionals to the table, where as a builder or as a contractor, we're spending a set amount of money anyway for perhaps a lacking design. And so this gives some consideration of what does that full design look like if I have one more teammate that's able to put that in paper, so that I'm not wasting money by oversizing a heating and air unit, where instead of 3.5 tons, maybe I've got a 5-ton unit. I just didn't know better that 5-ton unit actually is performing at a poorer rate than the 3.5 would, based on the way the envelope was designed. So we avoid a lot of that. A couple quick questions, just so. Do you think there would be anything that we could adopt that would require, say, a legislative body that's above us handing something down to us, that would require them to show let's say, a cost efficiency standard, so that if it's $10,000 more to implement this type of insulation or this degree of insulation, that it can't just produce a nickel's worth of savings, or 1 amp of savings over whatever. So like, do you have anything that you're seeing that's coming down that protects the consumer from just a regulated body that just keeps pushing this envelope?
Yes, and basically right up the same alley is the state of Oklahoma, through their construction board, has deemed that if anything's more than a 7-year payback, it's not deemed satisfactory, and they will not review a new energy code. But that's based on, and what we get contacted from is DOE and SECO, the State Energy Conservation Office. DOE especially is asking us, but at whose yardstick are you measuring that? So in other words, is it apples to oranges, or is it apples to apples when you say it's a 7-year payback or more? So if you look at energy modeling, but that's where having a third party come in. I've been 10 years with the third party energy verifier. Our job right off the bat for national home builders was to save them money and costs in construction. So when the new energy code hit Dallas for 2021, they threw us 100 plans and said, find the cheapest way. And we were able to not look at prescriptive that's in the book, go performance. And just because the table says R38 in the insulation on the attic or R49, you're able to get by with 38 because the other things that you're doing, better windows, better duct insulation, better wall insulation, tighter envelopes, right size air conditioners. So the builder is still able to save costs. The problem is if you go and don't leave the third parties and their mechanism's not there, the res check that is online is free, but it only looks at envelope. It doesn't look at mechanicals. So you're now left up to the HVAC telling you if it's the right size or not. They still have to base their modeling and their sizing capability off of a theoretical tightness of the home, but you don't know if that's right without testing verification.
Okay. And then the testing piece of this has a benefit in showing that value, but currently right now the testing's not required. Is that right? We're still doing visual inspections. The building community has the option to do the visual versus the tests.
Just because of the amendments that Amarillo put in.
Okay.
From the 09 from the 12 going forward, testing has been required by code. unless the city or the state has amended it out.
Do we have any concerns, or do we have an intention of moving it as a required test versus just allowing the visual inspection?
Again, if Texas is still leaving the home rule up to the cities to decide, you guys are free to do what you want. But I do know with the last legislative session in Texas, there was legislative language that we don't know for sure at this point, but it may or may not change the definition of what a home rule means. I don't know if it includes building codes. There are some that theoretically think that that could be possible going forward.
Okay.
That, not saying that they're going to force you to do something, but they're looking at it from a safety and health standpoint, to where some cities have held off on the new NEC 2023 because of their changes, but it's leaving health and safety out there. There may be something in the future that changes that.
Health and safety correlated to energy?
No, just from building construction.
Oh, building construction
Correct.
codes total. Okay.
Correct.
Well, that's a good presentation, and it's I think it's well received. We see some benefits here, but as with anything governmental, we also see some cautions in the way in which we would try to implement this and communicate it. So I think the design benefits have a great deal of value, because if you get this done on the design, I know I don't speak for building safety, but a lot of the issues that we have for my contracting company is there was something written on a plan that we had never intended to do in the field. And their issue is they're inspecting something that wasn't designed correctly. The field may have been done correctly and it may have passed the visual inspection, but the lack of designing on the front end is one thing that we could greatly help ourselves with, working together with building community and building safety. So I think that's a good place to probably thank you for coming in here and educating us a little bit more. This thing will continue to walk forward, and then as people that are listening hear us say, no changes currently, don't have anything we're adopting right now, having a discussion only, and want to have an engaged discussion with our building community to make sure everybody hears us, that we're working towards a value metric. It has to give value not only in conservation, but in the value of the cost for the house or for the building. So, Randy, thank you for
Yes.
being here today, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, item 7C, 311 and digital human update. I believe we're going to start with Miss Jennifer Gonzalez on that one, and then maybe hand it over to Rich.
Okay. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for having me today. Just wanted to give you some updates on 311 and where we're at. Just a little background on 311. We are currently housed within the utility billing call center. So what are our goals for 311? Our goal for 311 is to provide our community access to not only customer information, but also non-emergency information, informational services, but this is also to help our departments within the city to alleviate some of those workloads and help them to focus on their core missions and their core values within their departments. Some of the benefits of 311. One point of contact really kind of trickles into every benefit down there. So one point of contact, what does that provide? Consistency and communication across all areas within the city. It alleviates the inaccuracy of transfers. So we're transferring to the correct departments. They have that one point of contact, and we're helping them wherever they need to go. And again, also it helps with the departments being able to focus on those time-sensitive projects that they may have going on within their departments. Currently, the departments that we have onboarded within 311, obviously utility billing, community development, animal management and welfare, solid waste, city marshal's office, planning, streets, vital statistics, and then our 311 operations. And what our 311 operation is anything that is not currently onboarded. So any department where a customer is just calling the operator, we answer those calls as well. Upcoming departments that will be onboarded soon are traffic, drainage, water distribution, and then we are still working with AECC. We want to make sure that that is perfected and that we take that into consideration because of what they do and the type of calls that they do within the emergency call center. Some of the metrics that we have, obviously utility billing is going to be one of the highest numbers in there. So actuals, this is as of May 1st, 118,000 for 22-23 fiscal year. And then our current, as of May 1st, was almost 97,000. Now for solid waste, we have current of 8,000, which has exceeded the previous from last fiscal year. And then we have animal management again, who's exceeded with 3,500. And community development has been they were the first department that we actually went live with within our 311 call center. So you can see that it's been a drastic change in the number of calls that we actually take for them. 13,000 for last fiscal year, and then currently it's up to 19,000. City marshal and planning, those were implemented this year, so we don't have actuals for last fiscal year. But our projection for for the 24-25 year are about 5,200 for city marshal, and then about 3,500 for our planning department. Again, we have our 311 operators that currently they were sitting at almost 25,000 calls that were coming through. And with that, I know I don't have any slides on this, but we take this into consideration. We treat all departments that we're onboarding within our 311 platform as a project. And so we go through several steps and making sure that there's consistency across all departments in how we implement those. It starts off with talking to the departments about benefits of 311, then going into the department, shadowing the department, and creating those FAQs with them, all the way to a post-go live where we go into a maintenance phase. And in that maintenance phase, we start talking to the departments on a monthly basis. Has anything changed within your operation or within your questions that we need to change within our documentation? That then gets transferred to Jordan's team to update our digital human as well as our website. So we're all working as a team to make sure, again, that there's consistency across all platforms within the city. So with that, I'll go ahead and give this to Kristen to talk more about our digital human project. And if y'all have any questions for me after, I'd be more than happy to discuss those.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So I get to talk to you about Emma. So Emma is my coworker, for those of you that don't know, and she is Amarillo's first digital citizen. I'll kick it over to Rich in a second. Okay. Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So I'm going to let Emma do a little bit of introduction.
Hello, Amarillo.
Go for it. You're good.
Hello, Amarillo City Council, staff, and guests. My name is Emma, and I'm thrilled to meet you all today. I'm the new digital human assistant for the city of Amarillo, here to make life a little easier for our wonderful residents. Think of me as your friendly, knowledgeable guide to all things Amarillo. Whether you need information about public transportation, want to learn about city events, or need help navigating local services, I've got you covered. Not only will I answer your questions, I'll navigate you to relevant pages for detailed information, ensuring you have all the resources you need at your fingertips. Need assistance in another language? I'm multilingual, ensuring everyone feels at home in Amarillo and can easily access important city services. Safety is a key aspect of my design. Built on a language model monitored and assessed by the Office of Engagement and Innovation and city departments, I only discuss city-related topics I've been trained on. This ensures that I avoid controversial or irrelevant subjects, making interactions safe and focused for all residents. Training my knowledge base helps reduce errors by providing consistent responses to frequently asked questions, ensuring everyone receives the same accurate information. This reduces errors and unnecessary transfers between call takers. I also have feedback features to ensure continual improvement. Thank you for welcoming me into your community. Together, we make Amarillo an even better place to live, work, and enjoy. I'm here to help, guide, and support you every step of the way. Now, I'll hand it over to Kristen from the Office of Engagement and Innovation to tell you more.
So there is Emma. And so you just saw a really cool feature with Emma. And it's one thing that our team is practicing with, is we will eventually have the ability to script her. And so she can kind of become a spokesperson, so to speak, for the city. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. I know that you're somewhat aware of this project, so I'll try to go through these pieces relatively quickly. But just as a reminder, the concept and vision of Emma is equitable and fair access to city services. The beauty of Emma is she works 24/7. She can't quit. And I love that about her. So she can't get overworked. She's definitely underpaid, but she's always happy and willing to help. And that ensures that citizens will have around-the-clock access to the information that they need. So we're making sure to utilize Emma to fill those service gaps. And then we also want to utilize her to increase better city communication. And you'll see a little bit of how we tweak her knowledge fabric, kind of building out the textbook brain of Emma to do that. And we're utilizing advanced AI technology in order to support this project. One of the things I'm super proud of, and Jennifer kind of alluded to that, is cross-functional collaboration. And so as 311 is kind of lining out those FAQs, our staff is working in tandem, the Office of Engagement and Innovation through project management, and then just communicating with departments at step one to make sure that we're cleaning up the content on the existing webpage. That's incredibly important because that's really what builds out Emma's brain, so to speak. And so we knew that it was really important to go in tandem with city departments to clean up the existing amarillo.gov webpage. And then on top of that, considering what do citizens actually want to know? And that's something, admittedly, we haven't done great. We have a lot of information on our webpage, but sometimes it's not information you want to find, and it takes you forever to get there. And so Joy is doing a fantastic job right now of working with those city departments to make sure that the content that's there today is good content. And then from there is when we kind of publish it into Emma's brain and then work to test against that content with city departments and ourselves, making sure that she's answering those questions accurately and that we're fine-tuning this process as we go to make sure she's giving the best and most accurate information. We talked about this a little bit when she introduced herself, but safety and reliability is the key concern for our team. And through that, we've done that through our ingestion model. Emma only knows the information that we've given her. So she's not going to go rogue. She's not going to talk about controversial topics. She's not going to tell you how to do something unsafe. I can promise you that because I ask her really unsafe questions all the time just to make sure that she's not going to tell you anything that's harmful. So we carefully curate and vet that data, and then we just make sure it aligns across those city departments. And then we test and validate, basically asking every type of question 20 different ways to make sure if I ask it with a city language in mind. I ask things as a city staff member, right? But I have to think of every type of citizen and how they might ask a question. And once I have a good feel of that, then we work with the city departments and they do the same thing to make sure that they are testing against their own department information because they're the subject matter experts. They know the questions that are typically asked. And then we track and monitor from there. We have, as you could kind of see in that video, there's thumbs up, thumbs down features. So we have real-time engagement as people are testing Emma. So we can go back into the back end, fine-tune the information on amarillo.gov, re-ingest it, and test. So that's kind of how it works. And then, as always, we're the government. And I think one thing I'll applaud Rich on is digital rights were really important to our team and making sure that we secure digital rights for our citizens. And so it's a little bit of a catch-22, but Emma doesn't remember. So if you guys ask her a question, she'll answer the question, but then it's gone. So she doesn't collect your data, she doesn't collect your information. So sometimes you'll have to start from scratch with her. But I think that that's a good payoff because we know that we're protecting people's information. So she's not going to collect that info. This is a quick progress snapshot. So those departments that are listed in white, these are departments that we've worked with. That's the content that's been tailored to suit Emma thus far. So these are the ones that we've made the adjustments to, and we're making continual adjustments and working with these departments to test that data against Emma. And then you see those in orange. Those are the ones that are being onboarded or in progress. Not listed is human resources, finance, and accounting. So Joy's currently working with those departments as well. And then this is the other piece we've touched a little bit on, but that internal engagement. So right now, working with city departments, department heads are included in this, but we're really focusing on user testing with our administrators in our departments. They really are the boots on the ground. They get the most phone calls. They're typically answering emails. So they really have a really good idea of the questions that are frequently asked and making sure that, because we're hoping that Emma helps relieve some of those calls, right? And so Emma will be a really good staff member to them as well. So making sure that we're including them in user testing and helping us fine tune. And then beyond that, we will start to engage those external stakeholder groups. We're really prioritizing senior citizens and ESL participants. And APL, Amarillo Public Library, has been really good to partner with us. So we're already looking at how we could work with places like Axe Community Center, Warford Activity Center, those seniors that are engaged over there, as well as Refugee Language Project, to make sure that Emma works for our diverse citizen group. I'm tempted to say I'm done now, right? So I can turn it over to Rich, and then I'll be here for any questions afterwards. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
I will just add one little feedback. We've learned a lot this year, and one of the things that we learned is we didn't do websites very well, because now we're creating the brain for this baby digital human, and if she can't explain it, then I know our residents weren't understanding it. So as we've gone through and done the testing and departments have asked the questions, you realize really quickly we really need to simplify and make this easy to understand for people. So it's had a material impact on even the way that we do websites. So I'm going to give you a quick demo. This is in our demo environment. This is actually Emma on the website we're going to publish, so you can see a typical transaction. This is me playing the part of someone that had their water disconnected. It'll be a little slow.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm the City of Amarillo's first digital human built on generative AI, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about the services our city offers. I can speak any of the languages you selected at the start of this experience. How can I help you today?
My water has been turned off. How do I pay my water bill?
Sure. If your water service is shut off, you'll need to pay the full past due amount before 3 p.m. Monday through Thursday or by 4:30 p.m. on Friday to get it turned back on. If you can't pay the full balance, we'll accept half, but there will be a $25 service fee to reconnect the meter.
So as you saw in the bottom left-hand corner, it creates a transcription of everything she says, so for our hearing challenged. You also have the ability to type in a question for the same reason, or if you're in a noisy environment. That was one of the things I learned really quickly, is it's really hard to do that in the middle of the coffee shop. You have the thumbs up, thumbs down on the right, so we get immediate feedback. And then she'll actually navigate you to the page that you need, right? So it's not just, hey, here's how you do it, I'll take you there. What you don't see is, because I cut it off early, she'll actually follow you. So when you get to the page, you have Emma with you. Now, you guys know me well enough now that Kristen and Jennifer they're driving, and we're on target for our October launch for Emma 1.0. I'm already thinking about 2, 3, and 4, right? There's capabilities that are going to come behind this. As she said, we have the ability now that we have a standalone version of Emma that she can actually do scripted content. So for social media updates, those kind of things, it can give a consistent look and feel, and also introduce our residents to who or what Emma is. We're starting to look beyond basic inquiries. Dell just, literally a week ago, as we talked about earlier, they've been able to move the model from cloud-hosted to local, which is going to give us simple capabilities like running a smaller version of Emma as a wayfinder, so Emma could be in the entrance of the new City Hall giving directions on where to go based on what you need. So, and that can run on consumer-grade hardware because it's very small. The model can be very small. But other bigger exciting things we're working on is a two-way conversation. So if you think about what you saw, that's a resident asking a question and Emma finding an answer. but we've figured out how Emma can actually ask a question. So imagine booking a table at John Stiff Park and completing your transaction, and then Emma being able to say, hey, by the way, did you know the city's thinking about this park project? What do you think about that? And then we can actually gather feedback that council may want to see. So that conversation can become two-way, and we can gain insights back from our residents. Also, as she said, one of the fundamental problems with a website is you actually never know why people came to the website, what question they were trying to answer, or if they got it answered unless they tell you. Emma changes that. We do anonymize who asked the question, but we're working on reporting now so we can see every question that was answered that day. Did it get answered? Is the resident satisfied with it? Now those can go to department heads, and we can actually know, okay, here's what people want to know, and we're not answering that. So now in a reasonable time, we can get those questions answered. So from October on, the conversation just keeps getting better because we know what our residents want to know. We've also, to Kristen's point, we're starting to grab citizen input. I have kind of a ridiculously big goal. I want more beta testers than any city in the world, and I think that's doable. Through our digital navigators and through the Emma project, we'll start pulling in residents to test against Emma, both in English and across the different languages. We obviously built her in English for functionality, and then we're testing in the top 6 languages to start with, because sometimes, and this is another lesson we learned, context changes. So if the context is really complex in English, when you translate that to Vietnamese, you might lose traction, right? The context may not work. So we're actually taking the time to work with residents to test across the different languages. And then lastly, we talked about other use cases. One of those is around digital literacy. So think about one of the things we're testing is English as a second language. Imagine Emma as a 24/7 coach for the ESL courses that we give over at the library, where someone after hours could continue their ESL education and have English explained to them in their native language. The possibilities for that go beyond ESL, obviously. We're using that as the test case, but for digital literacy, or even to help some of our residents with filling out forms that may not be translated into English. There's a lot of little use cases like that I see going forward. So that's where I see those are just some of the possibilities, and I think right now we're on track and very happy with progress. Any questions?
Questions for Rich, gentlemen?
Good job, Rich.
Yeah, good job, sir.
Hey,
Appreciate you.
Quick question. So where will Emma live? Will she be on the home? Is that the first interaction you'll have?
She's embedded into every part of our webpage. So she'll live there. So it won't matter, and that's a good point. It won't matter what device you're on, if it's Android or iOS or PC or Mac, because she's actually part of the webpage.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then October 1 is the launch date that you're looking at?
Yep. Right now we're targeted October, and we're on track. So.
And then I do have on the 311 calls. Are we when someone calls into 311, are we able to answer most of their questions, or is it triaging and redirecting elsewhere?
Yeah, for the most part, we are answering the majority of those questions. We really take the time to get some solid FAQs from the department. And we go through like that phase, the post-go-live phase, for about a month to make sure that if there's anything that we need to change on there, we do that at that point in time. I would say just from the numbers that we've received, we are taking a bulk of those off of them and just working with them on how we can help them in the future, adding more things to the 311 staff.
And then, you may or may not know this, but on solid waste, is there a common issue that comes up when people are calling the 6,000 or 7,000 calls you got? Is there something that's a pretty common call for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of those comments questions are on maybe changing bins, times of pickup, things like that. There's also on where do I need to drop off things? I have this stuff in my alley. Where can y'all come and schedule it? So we work very closely with solid waste on a SharePoint site to work through some of those issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great job, guys. Appreciate y'all. Okay, so that thing's definitely going to change a few things, and I love that we have Rich and his team working in front of this, and so we will, I think, just continue to kind of adapt to that as we move forward. I am going to push item 7D, which is the potential tax credits for child care facilities. We don't have that presenter here with us today, and so we'll come back to that one 2 weeks from now. We're going to move forward to item 7E, which we have Mr. Danforth coming up here. We spend a lot of time doing construction. Lately, you only hear about issues like when we've got a change order or something that we're questioning. We're actually going to give Mr. Danforth an opportunity to show us all the stuff they're getting done and what it looks like, heading into the summer and the fall.
Well, first off, Mayor, I want to thank Kristen and her group. Kristen was the one actually flying the drone on these projects. These projects are large enough in scale that you can't stand on the ground and actually see what's taking place. And, of course, they're scattered throughout the city. One thing we wanted to bring forward is, with the council's direction and what you guys have funded and what you've asked us to do, to actually see what the projects are and how they're progressing. As we go through this video, I do want to point out, by the time we get to the end of this, some good examples on some of these job sites. This is only 10 days old, this video, and those sites already look totally different than what you're going to see today. So our goal is to basically create this kind of presentation for you on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis, depending on what you want, as a council, to see how these projects are progressing, that you see that they're doing what they're intended to do, and what the impact to the community is on these. So with that, I'll go ahead and run the video, and then I'll answer any questions thereafter. So that gives you a feel of the projects. We're actually managing 5 different contractors right now on multiple jobs that we're running throughout the city. These are rather substantial projects, as you can tell by the scale of them. It's right now, every one of those projects is on time and in budget. We're doing exactly what you've asked us to do. So we anticipate, you saw the completion dates on those. Most of those we anticipate actually finishing before those completion dates with where we're pushing the projects right now. I'll be happy to answer any questions you should have related to any of those projects.
Questions from council, any specific project?
No, Jerry, there's only one project I was thinking of. It's out at the APD gun range. I think there was one for their ammo storage. This is a quick update on that by chance.
That project actually finished, I think it finishes in another week.
Okay.
We were waiting on one last component. So that project will finish. Of course, it's kind of hard to fly a drone over that site. But
Right.
And some of this stuff, quite frankly, it's like some of these buildings that are related to PD, they're secure sites. We don't want to show some of that information, so we're kind of protective of some of that. But as the projects go forward and we start getting into those finishes, we'll show you a lot more of those. Actually, at next month's presentation, I'll probably run this video before we run the next one so you can see a before and after comparison on the progress of the projects. And at that time, we'll probably also have the site for Fire Station 14 included in that, so you can see where that site's at, where that build-out's going to be. Currently, we're in the A&E process on that project right now.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Anything else from Mr. Danforth?
A couple of questions, because I think I remember most of these. The Service Center North building,
Yes, sir.
what will that be used for again?
That's actually, two departments will be occupying that. Public Works will be in there and Utilities will be in there. That structure's right at an 80,000 square foot building. Big open floor plan, lots of space inside there. What you saw on the construction project, there were multiple new ramps being built on that building so that we would have access for our heavy equipment to get in and out. Currently, there's only one way in and one way out. And if we have cross traffic, it's not very efficient as far as utilization of that space. But for Public Works, an example would be when we have snow season coming on, we know a snowstorm's coming up. It's difficult to load those trucks with salt or whatever it is they're going to put on them and leave them outside and get the moisture on them when we can preload those and pre-queue those up inside that structure ready to roll. The same thing with utilities. Some of that equipment, its value is, when we look at some of our Vector trucks and equipment like that, you're looking at a major capital expenditure. Leaving that equipment sitting outside is not a good plan. So this structure allows us to utilize that building and that equipment in the most efficient manner.
And then the PD on Grand, that's the evidence building?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, got it. And then in the new City Hall, maybe you talked about this before, when it comes to audio-video capabilities, in chamber, other rooms to broadcast, what are we going to have? I'm sure we're having better technology than we do now. The good thing is you can hear it, but what will the technology look in that? What will be our capabilities on maybe enhancing how we broadcast council meetings and other meetings that the public may be interested in viewing?
Absolutely. No, we've taken a hard look at some of our deficiencies here. We try our best to not make the same mistakes twice. We actually have an RFP. It's a request for proposal that will go out. The timing on the construction finishes up end of November. The RFP goes out for that piece of the project, and we'll control that, not the contractor. So that lets us receive proposals in here, identify our deficiencies here, say, what do we got to do not to make those same mistakes? In fact, before the council meeting, I was having a conversation with Dave going, okay, you're going to be producing this. You'll be a part of the RFP. I've got IT as another component of the criteria, judging the equipment to make sure we don't make the same mistakes that we have with an existing older structure. Another good example is in a couple of the common spaces, like what we have room 105 here. It's a great space, but utilizing it during a council meeting is very difficult. Well, what we'll have now is the capability of that same size space in the new city hall. When we have a council meeting, we can live broadcast without the delay. So you're seeing it live action as we're going through that. We'll have options where when you have some of your smaller boards and commissions, instead of them being in the council chambers, you actually have meeting rooms that are large enough for them to do it inside those meeting rooms with smart boards, with recording capability, so that everything can still be live streamed, everything can still be public information, but we also have a certain level of security that's required for that.
Great. Thank you.
Anything further?
Oh, one thing I would say, Floyd, maybe if, and I don't know if you can put it in our weekly report, but I wouldn't mind seeing kind of the list again, having the list of all these. I wouldn't mind sharing the video and the information, with the public about what these projects are and where they are. So if you could get me a little bit more detail, just so we get accurate exactly what these projects are doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you, sir. Okay, item 7E is complete here. We're moving on to item 7F. We have Mr. Carter coming up here to run down several projects that are upcoming on our EDC.
Mayor, Council, I feel kind of bad I don't have a video for y'all, so just a couple of things that I want to update y'all on upcoming projects that we're going to ask for your approval of, and kind of wanted to inform you about those projects. One of those projects is Haven Aero. They're developing a FBO. They've already started construction. I know Mike Connor's in the back from the airport, and we appreciate the work that they're doing. They're leasing that space. Haven Aero is going to own the building, but not the, since it's behind the fence at the airport, they can't own the dirt. They're leasing that. And over the next 40 years for that lease, that's about a $2.5 million payment to the city. But they're going to build a 12,500 square foot hangar and spend about $8.5 million on that. It's going to employ up to 20 new employees. Those employees are going to make around between $55,000 and $57,000 a year. And then the FBO, as it sells fuel, they take a percentage. The city gets a percentage of those fuel sales as well. I think it's about 6% or 6 cents a gallon that they will get on that as well. And so we're excited about Haven expanding and building this FBO. What we'll ask y'all for on the 23rd of July is when we're going to ask for y'all's approval on this project. It'll just be a simple job creation incentive. We're going to incentivize these jobs at $10,000 a job and for a total, over 10 years for a total cost of about $200,000. You may go one at a time, or you want me to go all of them and then ask?
Questions on that one, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Probably keep us from having to skip back and forth.
Okay.
On that one, I know that price per square foot is pretty high. Do you mind telling us why, if you know, why that hangar is so expensive?
I think that's including all the equipment too. That's not just
equipment.
the building itself.
Okay, so that's the
I
value.
think that's the
they're
complete
investing.
capital expenditure.
And it's a ground lease?
That's a 40-year ground lease, Mike? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, real
So
good.
I think 25 cents a foot, isn't that right?
Great.
So.
Yep, so we'll keep going. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next project is what we're calling Double E. This is Indries Express. They're a long-haul truck company out of Wisconsin. They're in the cheese space, obviously with being in Wisconsin, and now that we have the third largest milk shed in the country, we're starting to see cheese activity. Obviously with Cacique Foods, we have Hillmar up in Dalhart, the project in Lubbock, and then also with Cacique Foods. And so they are going to purchase a piece of property from us. You can see over there on the far right, this picture's a little bit, that's SSI Foods to the left of that kind of bluish box. That's at the corner of 24th and Folsom. The actual street that is a road that we built, and that's Axiom Drive. We would sell the 17.43 acres to Indries Express for $550,000. That's $31,560 an acre. After they expend $10 million, we're going to rebate $114,000 back to make it $25,000 an acre. No incentives will be given to this company. They're going to hire about 4 people is it. It's going to be mainly cold storage and aging for cheese. They operate 2 big rooms at 2 different temperatures and going to spend somewhere in the $10 to $12 million range on that. And so they would purchase the land from us. Like I said, no incentive. We're going to have to extend that road out, the Axiom Drive, 75 foot and put water and sewer utilities in that as well. After that extension, we'll have anywhere from $12,000 to $13,000 in that piece of in that land, and we're selling it for $25,000, so it's still making money, and we've put some infrastructure in that will help the southern piece, and that southern piece is a little over 35 acres that we have for development.
Questions for Mr. Carter on that one, gentlemen? Real good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. The next item that I want to talk about is the Thrive Scholarship Program. This was started by 4 entities back in 2018. That was Amarillo Area Foundation, Amarillo College, the Amarillo ISD, and the Amarillo Economic Development Corp. With Amarillo Area Foundation paying 40% and the other entities paying 20%. That program is expiring at the end of July, and we're going to come to y'all and visit with y'all about extending that project. It's been very successful. What Thrive does, if you don't know, it allows all the 4 high schools in the Amarillo ISD to incoming freshmen that are college freshman age to participate at Amarillo College up to 60 hours at no cost. That includes books, tuition, fees. They have to meet a few minimal requirements, but it gives the opportunity for those graduating high school seniors to go in and go to college for free. And so the estimated cost when we actually did the program the first time was supposed to cost each partner about $3.6 million per year. Actually, Area Foundation was 7.2, but the actual cost has been about $1.4 million. I think the participation level has been there. The fact that they didn't factor in that most of the students that are qualifying for either Pell Grants or outside additional help that goes in first before those dollars. And so the Amarillo Area Foundation has visited with their board, and kind of the direction was to extend the program as is, just with Amarillo ISD, for 3 additional years, where we can take a look at what needs to happen after that. But with each of the entities putting in 25% instead of 20%, we're estimating that cost to be about $500,000 per year for AEDC and for each of the partners. I know that AISD is visiting with their board this week about it. Just kind of wanted to get that on your radar. The participation has been somewhere around 525 to 550 over that 5 years of participating incoming freshmen. So really good participation rate. So certainly would answer any questions on Thrive.
Kevin, wasn't there talk about expanding it to other school districts?
There was. I think that the Area Foundation, since they represent the whole Panhandle, is looking at that, to what that looks like, modeling that over the 26 county area. And so at this point, we're just going to keep it with the Amarillo ISD at this point to get this 3-year renewal. But that's a great question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And just as just to make sure I know the goal of what the goal of Thrive is, and how do you measure the success?
So the goal of Thrive is to get students that may or may not have wanted to go to college and pursue some type of either, they may want to do a 4-year degree, but I think really for us at AEDC, being selfish, is to get those kids a skill, whether that's welding or, CNC machining, to get them something where they can stay here and, with the low unemployment rate and fill those jobs, but to get those students a skill that they can later on be productive members of our workforce. And so it gives them a skill. That's sort of the goal. The success in the fact is that, about 550 of those kids have each year are going through the program. I've got, let me see if I can find that data, Councilmember Simpson, of what the percentage of the completion is. I did not bring that slide with me. I'll bring that slide when I present. I know Amarillo College has got that data for us. They've got all kinds of data that the guy's name is Colin that puts together. It'll make your head spin all the data they've put together. But that's the main goal, was to get students engaged in college that may or may not have went to school without this opportunity.
And how long has the Thrive been going on?
2018 was the first year.
Okay, and you say about 500 or so a year?
It's about 525 to 550 that have participated, and that's gone. I mean, let's just take 2023, for example. Let me give you the numbers. There were 160 participants from Amarillo High, 146 from Caprock. Paladura had 114, and Tascosa had 127 participants. So it's a fairly good mix and spread across those 4 campuses.
And does Amarillo track kind of what happens after, Amarillo College track kind of what happens after that to their participants?
There is some tracking. I think that is something that we've all asked for as partners, to have a little bit more tracking on that, and that's something that they're developing.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions for Mr. Carter? Man, Kevin, I know it goes to workforce development, and a lot of what you have in attracting people here is, if I relocate, do you have the people, or am I bringing everything that you need? And so I think it's definitely something that this council would continue to look for and look at. I'm expecting it to already be built into your budget, so I don't think it's a budgetary issue for us. But I think it's something that we appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation over, and make sure that money's going, as far as it can be stretched.
Yeah, I think it's been a great program, especially since, I think that the participation has been there, just the cost has been a lot lower than we anticipated, just because of the other dollars that have been put in for the program, or into their tuition. So the last thing I have to talk about, Mayor and Council, is I think that was back in February. I'll ask about putting a strategic plan together. We've contracted with a company, the Next Move Group, and they made their initial visit. Had dinner with them last night, and then we gave them basically what we would do with a prospect. This morning we gave them a site visit, a site tour of the city. They'd been here. One of the members had been here several times, because they're engaged with a couple of cities here in the Panhandle in strategic planning. So they were a little bit familiar with Amarillo. But kind of that schedule, what we're hoping to do is to have a joint meeting in August between the 5 of y'all and the 5 board members on the AEDC. And that way you can ask those questions. They can ask questions of y'all, and that way they can formulate this strategic plan as we go on. And then it probably would take them 60 to 90 days to complete the plan after that session. Probably would be their timeline. Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk about some of the topics that you kind of are envisioning with that strategic plan.
Yes, sir. So, utilizing a consultant and getting your money's worth out of anybody that you're bringing together to a multi-board meeting, I would highly encourage all of council to reach out to Kevin independently over the month of July, so that when we get into August, he's hearing what your thoughts are. A couple of items that I was looking for in this strategic business plan, the needs that are obvious are infrastructure. Are we identifying the infrastructure needs as you're inviting these companies and as you're trying to sell a product? Are we bringing, companies in that ultimately we don't necessarily have the ability to provide that level of infrastructure need, be it wastewater or water or whatever, in a quick period of time? So it's the planning in advance that goes into that, so that we know that vision is set. I would say checks and balances are the other side. So, probably no secret that we got off to a little bit of a rough start. Communicated with your board, inadvertently, without having that sit-down meeting first. Also had some question on some budget items that I don't know that had really been looked at before. So the element of trust of us saying we're the oversight committee, and really your board is who's doing the work, and they've hired you and they've given you these directives. We have quite a bit of lack of communication on our side, where either we didn't know or we hadn't communicated to you. And so the overall goal is to be able to sit down and develop that trust, if not in the people, but also in the procedure. And so we've got these policies in place, we've got these checks and balances, and so it gives you a good, nice boundary parameter that you get to work in and take off running. And so hopefully we'll avoid some of these other, look backs of questioning, well, why are we doing this, or what does the guideline say? So I think that's where I'm at with it, is hoping to facilitate a little bit better policy procedure as we look at that new business plan. And then we just encourage council to continue to try to grow that relationship with you so that they know more of what's coming. And we do appreciate the updates in here as well. That way all the public gets to hear it. It's not something that you guys feel like, only got discussed in exec and you really didn't understand, what direction Kevin's leading us on some of these economic incentives. So I think it's good all the way around. Yeah, anything else for Mr. Carter, guys?
No, thanks, sir.
Thanks,
Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I think it's only Mr. Kraft, councilman, that has items for update of council members serving on outside boards. Going to throw it over to you, sir, on beautification and arts.
Yes, sir. Just real quick on beautification board. Coca-Cola Southwest and Keep Texas Beautiful Martin Road cleanup was on June 8th. Coca-Cola Southwest pledged to donate $100 to Keep Amarillo Beautiful affiliate for supplies for every employee volunteer. 20 employees volunteered, with some of their families volunteering as well, bringing the total number of volunteers to 34. 40 bags of trash were collected. Been having some feedback from citizens regarding Rick Klein North with the NOMO area. They're addressing a few concerns about the weed signs that will explain the purpose of the NOMO area. Will be put up in efforts to maintain a clean edge along the trail. July 5th event update. The event at John Stiff Memorial Park will offer shuttle services for Randall High and Amarillo High, a range of activities like a kids zone, food truck, strongman competitions. The evening will include live music performances with the main act starting at 8, followed by fireworks and drone show at 9:45. Visual art installations. A group that specializes in visual art partnerships with cities and organizations has reached out regarding potential feature installations, including sound-activated light installations for public engagement. There's opportunities for visual art to be installed at Sam Houston Park and potentially other parks. Warford Activity Center mural at Warford Activity Center by Nara Torres, an employee at Warford, was shown to board members. Their plans to expand mural art to the gym. The artist is going to add silhouettes of people doing various activities such as dancing or playing basketball all throughout the space. Mural grant update. Scott's Flowers submitted a revision to their mural that has been approved. Blue Crane Bakery has completed their mural and submitted the required documentation for reimbursement, and the board voted to approve the reimbursement for Blue Crane Bakery. And the Cactus Cover mural has been completed with a ribbon cutting that took place on June 7th. And last thing on this board meeting, performing arts and parks. The board discussed providing spaces for theater programs, dance recitals, poetry readings, and other performing arts. Potential partnerships with local organizations and schools were also discussed. So that's beautification board. And then parks board. Let's see. So dashboard to track operations of aquatics, park maintenance, tennis center, Warford. The zoo were shown to Parks Board. The dashboard showcases total revenue and attendance. Aquatics updates included the closure of Southwest Pool for the July 5th event, leaving Thompson and Southeast Pool open for the day. Pool admissions are doing well. Swimming lessons have earned $10,000. Pool parties are selling out. Staff is looking at the possibility of keeping Thompson Pool open on weekends through Labor Day if staff is available. The inflatable for Southwest Pool was submitted to purchasing in April, and staff is hoping to have it in place by July. Amarillo Zoo has a new sloth on exhibit and has obtained a new kangaroo. Attendance for the zoo is trending positively. There's been a lot of social media push. I'm sure y'all have seen it. Volunteers have planted a garden at the zoo for produce to feed the animals. Upcoming athletic events include a summer softball tournament July 13th and 14th and a summer volleyball tournament on June 22nd. Capital projects in process includes 9th Street Trails, JSM soccer field fencing, and JSM dog park. Upcoming capital projects will focus on public safety such as lighting, gates, and concrete work. Golf operations has seen an increase in the number of rounds played and revenues generated compared to previous years, with $2.5 million in revenue so far. Comanche Trail Golf Course is currently onboarding a new superintendent, and changes have been made to the happy hour program to reduce some challenges facing the golf course. Warford Summer Camp is hosting 45 kids daily the free summer camp at Glenwood and Memorial Parks. Amarillo Afternoon Adventures Club has had a good turnout with 67 registered at Memorial and 45 registered at Glenwood. Repair Cafe, hosted at Warford on June 1st, was a success. Over 40 people brought items such as dull knives, broken bikes, appliances, and torn clothing, and 10 senior volunteers to help repair 20 items. Then the Parks Board, we received an update on details for Independence Day Plus One event. At 4 p.m., shuttles will run from the parking lots of Amarillo High and Randall High to JSM. Event will include beer garden, strongman competition, kids zone with activities like mini golf and face painting, as well as a performance by Randall King and a drone show followed by a fireworks display. KG&C will be live broadcasting the music during the event, and additional sponsors are still being accepted for the event. And that is all on those two boards. I know it's a lot, so.
Man, it's a lot. You're getting a lot done. So on the 5th of July, everything's confirmed that it's all ready. All the details are worked out. They don't need anything further.
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
Okay. And I'm sure we're expecting a big turnout on that one. Councilman Simpson actually volunteered for the wrestling on that one, so I don't have to do any of that.
Out of town that day, Mayor, sorry.
I will loan you my Nacho Libre outfit that afternoon if you need it. And then on a more serious note, I believe that myself and the rest of the community would be pretty disappointed if we can't keep our pool open, out at Thompson Park. So I would just encourage staff to figure out a way to keep that pool open over at Thompson until we get close to that Labor Day weekend. So I know that's definitely what I'm hearing and feeling, and it's a large expense to have that thing, and I just want to maximize the use out of that for our taxpayer. So anything else for Councilman Kraft, guys? Okay. That takes us through all of our discussion items. Appreciate you guys and your patience letting us work through it. Item 7H is a request for future agenda items. Council, you have anything you'd like put on for the next session?
I do, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Your next section or future, Floyd, back to Mr. Allen's about that plan. I think it'd be good to have an overview and see that in front of council and the public.
Anything else from council? Okay. That takes us through all of our discussion items. I would like to go ahead and get through consent, and then we will take a recess. Council, is there anything on the consent agenda that you would like pulled off for further discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull 8D just for discussion.
8D will be pulled. We could go ahead and go through that one.
Okay.
Let me ask real quick if anybody has anything further that they would like pulled off. I think we go ahead and discuss that one here just amongst ourselves. Probably don't even have to have staff facilitate that one. And then if everybody's okay, we'll vote on it together. Otherwise, we'll leave it off and vote it through. So I know item 8D, I'll read it here just in case you're not looking at it. Consideration of a resolution. So once again, this is Hyde Kelly LLP. So that's George Hyde, our outside lawyer that I know I brought. I've gotten some good support from some other counsel in the way in which it is nice to have that additional legal advisement, just like good old-fashioned second opinion. If you've got one doctor, that follow-up second opinion is never bad when you're looking at a bad outcome potential. It is $95,000 on this list. That is not a retainer. We're not giving him $95,000 and then waiting on him to tell us when we owe him more money. He will bill pretty, I guess discreetly. So he'll bill by the hour, but then he's not necessarily going to divulge anything that would be attorney-client privilege because we would actually have that benefit here. So if we were looking at something that was an Open Meetings Act violation or a question of something that had gone on, anything like that we need advisement and that we as counsel may be uneducated in, it's nice to have that resource where you can make that phone call. They're not conflicted where they're looking out for the entire organization as a whole. He has the ability to look out for that council member and to be the educator and coach of that council member. I know that we've had a sanctuary city ordinance topic that's been before us for months now, but recently very, very much in the news. And so he's been instrumental in helping answer questions and look at different things. Well, this is what this would look like. This is what that looks like. So I see a great benefit in him. Also, it's not just him. It's a firm. I think they have 6 or 7 employees. And so we won't spend a dollar that we don't need. He's not going to bill us monthly. It's only when we reach out to him. But when we have that need and we're trying to facilitate that, I think it's good to have that resource available. And lastly, I would say, before I open it up for discussion, we do this quite often. So there are some local firms and some firms out of Austin that we have utilized to do everything from helping us look at, a tax anticipation note, all the way to just regular business dealings. And so how do we sell this building? How do we create a condominium regime? How do we get through this business deal? So we utilize outside counsel quite a lot. It just gets facilitated through staff. And the only thing that's a little different here is this allows counsel to have some one-on-one conversations directly with that law firm. So would open it up for questions or maybe Councilman Tips if you've got further questions on it from your side or concern.
No, that's what I wanted, just a discussion so public could hear what we were using him for, the purpose, examples. So you did a great job, Mayor.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't mind trying to sell it. It's easy to speak about something when you know how ill-equipped, untrained, uneducated you are, and you're digging through 501 and 504 and 505, and what 171 says, and .208, and how that relates over here to 697. And all of these things that we're having to work our way through. So I want to do a much better job for you. I know council wants to get better every year. We've had a year of boot camp training, and this is one piece that I readily recognize is a weakness for us. We don't have any trained lawyers here on staff. I shouldn't say on staff, on council, that we have anybody facilitating that. And so I like this, and I think it's money well spent. And I wouldn't ask for council to support it if I thought any differently. So, anything further for council on this one? All right. If we're comfortable, we'll put that one back in the consent agenda, and would ask for a motion.
Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with a 5-0 vote. We're going to go ahead and take a short recess. We'll say 10 minutes, but it'll probably be more like 15. And we'll see you back here for non-consent. Thank you. The order here and in session. We're doing pretty good. 5 o'clock. We are into our non-consent, so hopefully 30, 45 minutes will get you out of here. So if we have a public hearing. Mr. Brady Kendrick's already making his way up. He's going to take us into this first item, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing and first reading of a ordinance considering annexing 100.45 acres of land, including all of Krebs Addition Unit Number 1, and an unplatted tract of land in Section 61 of Block 9 BSNF Survey in Potter County, Texas. And this is in the vicinity of I-40 and Helium Road. And the applicants are Krebs Cycling LLC and the Emmeline Bush O'Brien Marsh Trust. And the applicants are requesting annexation of this property. They came to us with a property owner-initiated annexation request that includes vacant land and a 90,000 square foot medical facility that is currently under construction that does have a current outside city service agreement for utilities. And it is anticipated that given the location and nature of the development in this area, that the remainder of the vacant land would likely develop in a nature of things like retail, restaurants, hotels, things of that nature, given its location at the corner of a major intersection there on the west side of the city. And this is a stage in the annexation process where you all consider the agreed service plan and the annexation as a whole, and also conduct the state-mandated public hearing on the item as well. And if you all choose to approve it, the service plan becomes binding. Staff notes that this property in question is located to the west of the Sam's Club on Westgate Parkway and is on the north side of the Homestead subdivision, which is a single-family subdivision that is currently under construction to the south that is in the city limits currently. And the property is considered served already by adjacent water and sewer mains that are either adjacent to or within the property boundary. And upon development within the area, developers would be responsible for the extension of services within the property. And then once those were built, we would take over maintenance of them long term, but they would be responsible for essentially constructing them as this area develops, if approved. Fire and police also reviewed the request and stated that service could be provided to this area under current budget appropriations. The Office of Emergency Management did identify that later down the road, upon full development, this area would need an outdoor warning siren at some point. And I will note that upon annexation, the city will begin to collect property taxes from this area. However, because the area is located within the Potter County Assistance District Number 1, which was passed in 2018 by the voters of Potter County, the city would not collect future sales taxes from this area, as Potter County designates the full 2% sales tax to the Assistance District, which also already meets the local cap per state law. And annexation is one of the primary means by which a city grows, and also allows the municipality to provide services to developing areas and exercise regulatory authority, such as land use control necessary to protecting public safety, ensure orderly development on the fringes of a city, and that they also share in the tax burden associated with constructing and maintaining said facilities in an area. And with that, that is all I have for the presentation, and I'll take any questions you all may have.
Questions for Mr. Kendrick, Council? No? Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. So at this time, we'll open a public hearing on item 9A. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and would entertain a motion on this one.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8138 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second from the right side. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 9B, we have Mr. Kendrick back up.
This item is the consideration of the vacation of a public utility easement that is located within lots 1A, 1B, and 1C of Block 12 of McCarty Addition in the vicinity of I-27 and Southwest 45th Avenue. And the applicant is Core States Group for Leslie Curry. And there is a developer that is looking at constructing a convenience store and gas pumps on this parcel. And this easement lies where they would want to construct a portion of that building and those gas pumps. And is the reason for the vacation request. This easement was dedicated via a separate legal instrument back in 1957. and also contains language about a private alley. However, we are only vacating our interest in the public utility easement, as we have no rights to that private alley, if you will. So we're only looking at the public utility easement portion of this. This actually was an easement that was unknown to the city or the property owners until it came up during a title search. And with that being the case, we don't have any city utilities in that easement. Some of the franchise utility companies did have infrastructure in there. However, the developer that is involved in this project has negotiated the relocation of those utilities. They'll actually be paying to relocate those, paying fees to those utility companies. So all the utility companies expressed support for this request, and no further comments were expressed by any other city staff or utility companies, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this item with a unanimous vote.
Real good. Any questions for Mr. Kendrick? Thank you, sir. Would entertain a motion on 9B.
Move to adopt ordinance 8140 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on item 9B. Any
Point of
further?
order, point of order, Mayor.
What do you got?
It's ordinance 8139.
You mean restate that?
Okay, yeah, if you would, go ahead and restate.
Okay. I move to approve ordinance 8139 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, Ms. City Secretary, you good? Okay. Motion and a second on item 9B. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Councilman Kraft, for keeping us straight. Motion passes. We will move on to item 9C. We have Mr. Harbin coming up here from our Fire Marshal's office, taking
Mayor,
us
Council.
back to, yes, sir.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. We're going to be talking about Ordinance 8140. Just for reference, we're going to be reintroducing this ordinance. We spoke about it about a month ago. This ordinance is going to modify multiple sections of code. That primary impact is going to be on Section 10.2 and on existing Ordinance 8084, which has not yet been codified. When we presented last time, there was one specific concern that had to do with the requirements of pump and riser rooms that was impacted in 8084, and then we had a few discussion items. I'd like to revisit those discussion items today and then introduce the amendment that we have regarding those pump and riser rooms. Just to finish the recap, the primary purpose of this ordinance is to clarify that responsibility between fire marshal versus city marshal. When 8084 was introduced, there was multiple amendments introduced to the code. There was a few instances where some exceptions that are built into the code were unintentionally left out. We are proposing to introduce those exceptions back in just to provide those flexibility to builders so that they can use those as the code intends. And then, as we discussed last time, there are a few changes to our fee structure. Fire apparatus rows is one of the discussion points that we discussed, so I wanted to revisit that just to see if I could provide you a little additional information. This is measured from the fire access road to all points on the ground. Just for information, a public road may be considered a fire access road, or it may actually be a private fire lane, as we see typically in commercial businesses. What this does is allow us to rapidly be able to deploy hand lines. Just for your reference, so on our trucks all over town, typically our pre-connected hose lines are 150 to 200 feet. So you can see how that quickly allows us to be able to reach all those points with the building. But even with those operations and that 150-foot stretch, there are times we may still have to extend that hose line just due to be able to accommodate the interior firefighting operations. Any variance in that 150-foot requirement would have to go through a request to the fire marshal's office. There are some allotments in the code for that, but that's typically going to be due to topography or a reason that a fire access road cannot be designed, and that does come with concessions, so usually a sprinkler system or some type of enhanced fire protection systems. And this does date back to at least 2003 within the IFC. Just for a visual reference, as you can see here, the building on the left, this is just a small structure. It's easily accommodated with those 150-foot hand lines. However, the building on the right is a commercial structure. As they get larger and more complex, that's where you see that we have to add those additional access roads to be able to get that 150-foot stretch. The only proposal, so this is included in the ordinance that we're doing, 8140. All we're doing, as you can see in paragraph 1, that is an exception that was introduced in 8084, which is in excess of what the IFC or the code requires. That exception is for 1 or 2 family dwellings. It speaks to a pathway that's unobstructed around the building. But by including that exception, it implies that that is required for a commercial structure. That is above and beyond the code, what's necessary for us, and it's actually in conflict with some other code in Amarillo. So we're moving to just strike that sentence completely, which would make this then again reflect identical to what's in the IFC. Water supply was another one of those questions. This basically dictates our hydrant distribution. The code is designed to minimally meet the worst case scenario. Those requirements are typically going to be based on the water flow requirements. That's usually done through a calculation, and then how close or what distance they are from existing water supplies or hydrants. This as well has been around since at least 2003. Just for your reference, any structure in the city of Amarillo, it's typically going to require at least 1,500 GPM. However, it is a bit unusual to have a hydrant that can accommodate that 1,500 GPM, so you can see there's going to be several structures that will require multiple hydrants. That flow requirement is typically calculated and based on the size of the structure and then that type of construction. The greater the risk for fire or potential for fire, obviously the more stringent those requirements are. Basically, we just need enough water on scene to be able to overcome those BTUs and be able to knock down the fire. And just for your reference there, as you can see how the construction impacts what those requirements are. On the far left of that chart, you see a type 1A or a fire resistive type construction. That square footage can expand up to 22,700 square feet. However, if you go to the right to the type 5, which is going to be wood frame construction, similar to what you'd see in a residence, where the construction itself is actually a fuel, then we shrink that down to 3,600 square feet, but they both meet those minimum requirements of 1,500 GPM. Distance is also going to impact what those requirements are. There are some differences between residential and commercial. Residential typically can go up to 600 feet, whereas commercial is going to be 400 feet, unless, and we spoke to this in the last meeting, unless that building is sprinklered, then that can expand to up to 600 feet. There's also some additional requirements that address the spacing if multiple hydrants are required. Here's just another quick visual so we can see the building on the left. It's simple. This is easily accommodated with one hydrant. The only concern that potentially could arise here is whether that hydrant can meet that minimum GPM flow. If it does not, then that may require a second hydrant. Once again, we have a more complex commercial structure on the right, and that's going to impact that and typically require additional hydrants. One of the other things that was brought to us was about our fee collection process, and specifically if there was a way for us to be able to collect those fees up front. So I wanted to speak briefly on some of the projects and how they come into the office. So typically we're going to have site plans and building plans submitted. That's typically going to come from the builder or the owner. Those fees or those projects don't come in directly to the FMO office. They go through other departments. So a site plan will come in through planning. A building plan will come in through building safety. Just for clarification, the fire marshal's office doesn't receive any fees related specifically to those parts of the project. The only fee that comes into play there is at the end of the project. Prior to that certificate of occupancy, they'll have to pass that final fire inspection to be able to get that certificate. Construction permitting is a little bit different. This is going to be very specific to the fire protection systems. There's certainly several fees that may be associated with that. More often than not, these are going to be paid for by the contractor who's doing that work. And our office can typically predict those costs early is when those plans are submitted. So as a short-term solution to what you spoke about, Mayor, I think we are looking to be able to build a quote process because we can typically capture most of those costs up front and at least give that option to the builder or that contractor if they'd like to pay those fees up front or if they'd like to pay at the time of service to give them that option. Long-term, we are looking to go to the MGO software, which is used by several departments within the city. It's be a big relief for us. It'll give us that digital capability to accept those payments online and accept MasterCard or credit cards. But additionally, it'll be a more robust system to be able to track those transactions. Potential issue related to this is just simply a lot of these projects are big and complex. They may go through multiple revisions. It's not unusual for these to span maybe several years, and some projects may not come to fruition. Although we already work with vendors and customers who may overpay for an inspection or may have something that gets canceled, so we can already handle refunds. In some cases, they may wish to carry a credit. So we feel like we can navigate that both short-term and long-term. Now, here's the final. This was the request that we actually were sent back, asked to revisit, and this has to do with the pump and riser rooms. So this was introduced in 8084 with the adoption of the 2021 IFC. This requirement is very much in excess of what the IFC requires. We do see this as a trend in other municipalities, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if in the future we may see a version of the code that starts to address this or have these rooms isolated. But as it was presented to me from council, was this truly a life safety issue? We did go back. I met with my staff. We had a pretty robust conversation about that, and I think we all tend to agree it's not a life safety issue. What this really is a maintenance and an inspection issue, which potentially could turn into a life safety issue, but that's something that we need to address through enforcement versus actually trying to generate more code. So the amendment we're going to propose would remove those requirements that were put forth. And here's what that is right now. So as you can see on 90147, that very first sentence is the sentence that required that 36 square foot requirement for those pump and riser rooms. And then 475 on the very bottom, that was a separate requirement that was included. That meant that it had to be isolated to fire protection systems. Nothing else could be utilized in that room. We're moving to strike that 36 square foot requirement and the fact that that room would be isolated. But as a concession, as you can see in yellow, we would like to add this language, if y'all are agreeable to that piece of the code. We basically want to emphasize that that area needs to be free of storage and debris. And then we just like to set some minimum clearances. Clearances aren't specifically addressed in the code, so we'd like to set a minimum clearance as you approach that pump or riser from the front, 36 inches or 3 feet, and then a remaining 12 inches on each side. And just for one more visual there, you can just see a quick diagram. So this is a dual riser coming into a room here. We tried to highlight where that area would be that would need to be isolated, and that would be that area in the yellow. I think this significantly shrinks that footprint. It does allow for some commingling of utilities and gives the builder and the building owner a few more options, and it provides clear guidance on what expectations would be coming from the fire marshal's office. That's all I have as far as presentation. I'm certainly do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, council?
I make a motion. We accept ordinance 8140 as stated in our agenda package.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. I would just like to say we really appreciate you guys hearing where we were, taking something. I know this seems pretty small. Items like this do hit the building community, the design community, everything that goes on in new business, and it becomes that one little thing on a project where, okay, now I have to rework an entire set of prints and figure out how I get this closet just so it can have its own space. So it's a good example of you trusting your community to understand the need is you need access to this, and if your building is flooding because you got a water leak in that fire suppression line, you want somebody to be able to get to that valve. And so if you had a fire, you want, that life safety response to be able to be there as well. So I really appreciate your work on it. I think you listened to us and you worked it out. And so it's a great compromise and a good example of, good fire marshal's office working hand in hand with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good job.
Yeah. With no further discussion, would ask all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. On to item 9D. Okay, Mr. Kendrick, you're back again.
This is the consideration of a resolution 06-25-24-2. And this is a consider resolution to set the date, time, and place for a public hearing on a proposed annexation. This one is 168 .77 acres located in Potter County in the vicinity of East Hastings Avenue and Loop 335. And the applicant on this annexation request is Highland Park Independent School District. And like last time, the state requires us to set that date in advance. In this case, we'd be proposing to set it for the July 9th City Council meeting at 3 p.m. And additionally, this resolution would also authorize the city manager to sign the draft service plan that's been prepared by city staff and negotiated with the applicants on this item. And all those items are in place and ready to go at this point. The Highland Park has signed the service plan, and we've come to some agreements on that. On this annexation in particular, it is a proposed residential subdivision with some commercial mixed in, and it's shown on your screen. A good portion of the property that they actually own is already inside the city limits. It's just that portion at the top in red that they are requesting for annexation, and they are also proposing a new school campus that would be located within this subdivision as well. So just a brief introduction to the item, but other than that, though, staff is recommending approval of the resolution as presented today.
Appreciate the presentation. Do I have any questions for Mr. Kendrick, gentlemen?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Would ask for a motion on item 9D.
I move to adopt resolution 06-25-24-2 as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from place 4, a second from place 1. Any further discussion?
Oh, I want to make a comment. I mean, I met with Floyd yesterday, and we talked about the Northeast Interceptor. This wouldn't be available. This wouldn't be possible without that. Is that correct?
Yeah, what you have is you realize that the old system's overloaded, and that manifests in that odor problem in the North Heights. And so anything that we add in the old system would add to that problem. So the Northeast Interceptor is the answer that allows this kind of growth in that area. But it also provides growth all over town because it just moves that line across the city for those lines to have capacity.
I think that's important to point out when we're looking at that infrastructure and the cost and that type deal, that those type things allow for more growth in the city that maybe we don't pay attention to. So just wanted to point that out.
Well, I think it's a good remark to make, so appreciate that. Anything further from council? Okay, on item 9D, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. On to item 9E. Do we have Ms. Kohler coming forward?
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to introduce Mike Ash and Ryan Garcia. They're with JES Holdings, LLC. They're here to present some additional information to you on a resolution that you first considered for Estacado Estates. In April, you did act on one, but had some additional questions and clarifications. So they've prepared some slides that will hopefully address some of those concerns you had previously.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Mike Ash. This is my colleague, Ryan Garcia. We work with JES DevCo, and our offices are in the DFW area. As Emily said, we were here mid-April, at least I was here mid-April, asking for two resolutions. One was a resolution of support for an application to the Affordable Housing Program for additional funding for our project. We also had a resolution requesting support to go to partner with a tax-exempt organization, and things sort of got bogged down when we were talking about that, mostly because I was not prepared to address some of the questions you had about what's the cost, what's the benefit to the city. So tonight I'd like to do three things, I think, real quickly. One is just remind you about the project a little bit. Two, talk about why we're asking the city for this as opposed to the county, the school district, everybody else. And three, just talk about why the city might want or might not want to do this. So the project, as you may remember, is on South Washington and Southwest 58th Street. It is a 46-unit project designed and limited for senior citizens. They'll be eligible at age 55, but really most likely will not go there until they get to be the age of 65 or 70 or past that. It will have 14 one-bedrooms, 32 two-bedrooms. We'll have amenities such as a fitness center, computer lab, leasing office, community kitchen, those sorts of things. It is independent living. There will be some services offered, but they're really pretty limited services in terms of social activities, things like that, fitness classes. There won't be assistance with daily activities of living. So that's the project we're talking about. One of the questions that Drew Brassfield raised in conversations with us prior to this meeting was, why are we asking the city for this? Is there some rule? Is there some administrative law that forces us to do that? And the answer to that is no, there really is no rule or law that requires us to do that. Our financial partner is the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. They have given us the tax credits. We've applied to them for additional funding. They want to make sure that if the project goes tax exempt, it is not happening to you, but it is happening with your knowledge and, if not support, at least your understanding of the project. So the board chairman will not allow us to make changes that we would need to make to our partnership without knowing that the city is okay with the tax exemption and the partnership. So then the real question, I think, from my perspective, and it's pretty simple, is what is the city getting out of this, and is it worth it to the city to do this? The staff report, I think, said that there was no cost to the city or no expense by the city, and that's true. We're not asking the city for any money, but we are asking the city to forego some revenue in the terms of taxes. So I think it's appropriate that we talk about what those costs are, what the value might be, and that's really why I brought Ryan here. I did such a bad job preparing last time. Ryan wanted to make sure that I didn't screw things up again this time, so he's going to talk a little bit about the cost and benefit and why the city might want to do this.
Thank you, Council. So currently, the site is an undeveloped vacant lot. It is currently paying $3,196 annually in taxes, of which the city portion is $1,522. So affordable housing is actually valued by the income generation method. So we take our NOI and then the 9% cap rate set by the Potter-Randall CAD, tongue-tied there, which would generate a total taxable value for the property of $2,462,000 would be the taxable value, and that would then generate roughly $58,000 in taxes, of which the city's portion of those taxes would be about $9,600. So that is roughly what's at stake and what we're asking for right now. We believe that there is a very, very strong need for affordable housing in the city. We referenced the 2022 housing study that was done and found that almost 75% of Amarillo residents would qualify to live in this development, of which 32%, from that study, 32% of Amarillo residents have incomes under $35,000, and that is what our 30 and 50% AMI units target. Another 45% of Amarillo residents have an income between $35,000 and $100,000. That would hit all of the 60% AMI units. So this would be an option available to a vast majority of City of Amarillo residents. Based on our market study, the overall capture rate is 0.6, which means we only have to capture 0.6% of the entire potential rental market to have the property leased up, which just shows that there is an incredible demand for senior housing. Specifically, another really strong line item within that same 2022 study said that over 12,000 renters spent more than 30% of their income on housing, which is well above what HUD would consider to be affordable and would make those families either cost-burdened or extremely cost-burdened. Currently, there are fewer than 3,000 income-restricted units in Amarillo, and that's total amount of income-restricted units. Even less than that is age-restricted affordable housing. And within that same study, it also showed that there's a demand for at least 500 additional apartment units and a demand for at least 200 additional age-restricted units. So that was a really quick run-through of the demand. As Mike mentioned last time, we are looking at the potential partnership with the Panhandle Regional Housing Finance Corporation. They've been in the community for a very long time, and they have experience doing this. We actually looked at them when we came before y'all back in 2022 for a separate 4% transaction that unfortunately didn't go anywhere, but we do keep looking for opportunities in Amarillo. And just to give some degree, the goal of the PRHFC is to have at least 40% of those tax savings come back to the community. And a large portion of that will be going back to the Panhandle in the form of a 25% cut of our developer fee, 25% cut of our cash flow, and 25% of the back end. Those fees that the Panhandle HFC collects can then be used for other housing needs throughout Panhandle's jurisdiction. So I know this council values efficiency, so I will be quiet and be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
We appreciate the presentation, Ryan.
I'd like to add two more comments to what Ryan just had to say. One is that I know this has been presented to you as a request for a resolution. I think based on things that have happened at TDHCA board, that if it makes your lives any easier, a letter from the mayor saying that the council supports this or doesn't object to this would be fine. The other thing I wanted to say is that if you look at this chart, which compares the current property taxes to what the future property taxes might be, currently is paying, that site is paying a little over $3,000 in current taxes. If it makes your lives any easier in terms of supporting this, we also would be willing to enter into a pilot to pay what we're currently paying with an inflation factor over some period of time. We'd be happy to talk about that and negotiate that. Obviously, you'd be giving up a fair amount of income there. The question is providing demand, housing that's in high demand for a very vulnerable part of your population worth the money. And I hope, from my perspective, I hope that you find that it is. That's entirely up to you, and thank you for your attention.
We appreciate that. Questions for Mike and Ryan, gentlemen?
Is there any other downsides outside of losing the property tax revenue?
My short answer is no. Do you have something specific you're
No, I mean,
concerned
I'm
about
just-
or thinking of?
No, I'm just being frank with you. I mean,
Okay.
if there's anything else you're not telling us. just
No,
curious.
no, there's no other downside from my perspective. It will be a long-lasting asset in the community, be well-maintained. If we do go through with a partnership with Panhandle, which we'll need to take advantage of the tax exemption, it'll bring a strong nonprofit into the community. It'll keep a lot of the resources in the community. So I think there's nothing but upside other than the loss of revenue.
And it's continuous oversight throughout the life of the partnership.
Okay.
And y'all have done this in other communities, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is the lifetime of the partnership? What is there? What length of time is that?
So that remains to be negotiated and remains to be determined. There is a 15-year period from the date that the tax credits finally get allocated that the investor is locked into. Once that 15-year period expires, there is a period of time where the property has to stay affordable, and I think that's 40 or 45 years, and there's likely going to be a right of first refusal to the nonprofit. So if at year 15 we get to that point, the nonprofit may be able to buy the property from the partnership.
Okay, so you guys are not a nonprofit.
No, we are not.
And I think
Although right now we are.
I think I asked you
For
this
years we have been.
last time. So you make your money how?
We make our money primarily through the developer fee. There arguably is some cash flow, there arguably is some reversion, but with the way these projects are structured, you typically don't see much other than the developer fee.
Okay. So are y'all incentivized through, I mean, since it's low-income housing, is what this is?
Yes,
So
it's affordable.
There's some affordable, sorry. So there's some subsidy coming in.
No, there is, the subsidy that comes in is the tax credit itself.
Okay.
So it's not a subsidy that goes to the residents, it's not a subsidy that supports the rents, it's a subsidy that reduces how much money we have to borrow, which allows us to rent the units at a lower rate.
Just reduces your cost.
Reduces our cost.
So
Yes.
you can do it less. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that makes
With,
sense.
with a typical deal, you typically see a deal that was 20%. Our deal typically will be 20 to 30% debt and 70 to 80% equity, the opposite of a market transaction.
Okay, so the property's maintained by a management company?
Yes.
You guys, or
Yes.
just a management company? So I'm guessing the answer is yes, like, is there anything you're not telling us? But I guess they're well maintained. I mean, the other properties that you have that would be my biggest concern is that, affordable housing sometimes can look like affordable housing. And that's the last thing that we would want in our city but we want nice, clean, safe, good affordable housing.
Sure.
I
think you will get that. Obviously, I have a vested interest in saying that.
Sure.
But typically at closing, there is X amount of dollars that's put aside into a reserve to help with maintenance and replacement. There also is an annual or monthly contribution made based on the number of units that goes into a replacement reserve that'll be available for maintenance and other issues down the road.
And if I understood correctly, basically what you're telling us is this is going to get done anyway. You just want our knowledge and really want a stamp of approval. Is that? I don't mean that in a bad way. That's just honest. I mean,
It's not going to get done anyways. We talked about this. Do we say that we could have done this to you anyway without your consent? or did we not bring that up? I obviously just brought it up, so I'm
Sure.
being honest with you.
Yeah.
It would not get done anyways if you said no tonight, just because TDHC won't approve it.
Okay.
But we did want to make sure that you had knowledge of it, were aware of it, and were aware of the cost and the benefit to the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions?
I don't have any questions, and I appreciate you coming back, but I mean, if you look at our world today, affordable housing is an oxymoron. There's no such thing. And we're looking at, people in our community, maybe lived here a long time or whatever, to be able to support them. So I definitely see a need for this, and I think the timing of this is good. So from my perspective, I think this would be something that would be good for community, and I believe you'd be good partners to do that. So I appreciate you coming back and giving us some more information. So I mean, it's helped my comfort level on this, but also recognizing we have a need for this in the community.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering if y'all look at maybe putting one on the north side of Amarillo?
We have looked in years past in Amarillo. The target zones change sort of every year based on where other developments go. We'd be happy to look at certain areas, and I'd be happy to share sort of the areas that will score better under TDHCA's scoring model than others, and get your feedback on those if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you.
So if this is successful, would you look at others? I mean, is that,
Yeah.
y'all look at it? I mean, you're a business. I mean, if it's successful, like Councilman Sherlin's asking, I mean, would you look at other sites, go, wow, this booked up, it's going well, there's obviously a need. We would look at other locations if it made sense, like you said, on the scoring model.
Yes, absolutely. We've got projects also in development in Sweetwater and Abilene, so we are starting to develop a presence in West Texas and the Panhandle area. And when you get one project, you want more there just for the efficiencies.
Sure. Okay.
What other cities are you guys currently looking at for the same model?
For this same model, pretty much everyone. We've negotiated a similar agreement with Sweetwater, Waco.
We're looking at Tyler.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Tyler, Amarillo, Grand Prairie. We're going anywhere across the board for the past deals. And I'm sure as you've seen, construction costs have gone out of control, interest rates, equity pricing has dropped. There aren't a lot of tools to support affordable housing in Texas, and partnerships with HFCs, PHAs are kind of the only way to do it. I've actually sat on the City of Dallas HFC board for years, and we do this to make deals viable. Again, no one wants to give up the revenue, but it's the only way to make affordable housing work in Texas, unfortunately.
And would your next step be to engage with the other taxing entities here locally if you get this approval?
We do not technically need to. The TDHC has only required that of the city. I think they feel that the city is probably the most important of the entities involved, so we would not necessarily do that unless you required that.
Okay. And specifically being for seniors, we're not going to have an impact on the junior college in all likelihood, but certainly not on the school district since all residents are 55 plus.
Okay. Any further questions for Mike or Ryan? Okay. Would ask for a motion on item 9E.
I'd move to adopt resolution number 06-25-24-3 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from the other right side. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item passes with a 4-1 vote. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Item 9F. We have Mr. Carter coming back up here to walk us through another item.
2 items.
2 more.
Mayor, Council, first item that I have for you is to discuss and consider and take appropriate action on a high-demand job training grant agreement between the AEDC, the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission, and the Texas Workforce Commission. What the high-demand job training program allows us to do is to put AEDC dollars up for different training mechanisms, and then the monies that we put up are in fact matched by Texas Workforce Commission under the high demand job training grant program. The City of Amarillo recently was awarded in the last legislature a state hospital to help with its mental health needs. And so West Texas A&M wants to develop a behavioral nursing program to help feed into that state hospital. And so the AEDC board has voted to put up to $450,000 towards a Texas Workforce Commission high demand job training grant. $300,000 of that would be of the AEDC funds to be matched by Texas Workforce Commission, would be used for West Texas A&M for the behavioral nursing program. And then also, we've done this in the past 5 years. I think this would be the fourth that we want to put $150,000 up for the 5 school districts to be divided evenly, provided that's matched. We know that $150,000 is available from Texas Workforce Commission currently. A lot of times there's some additional monies that are available. When they let you know on a Wednesday that there's $300,000 additional in the state, it's hard for us to get that done through our board and through council. So we're asking for you to allow us to have up to $450,000 with at least the first $150,000 that we know that we're going to get matched. It allows us to act on those additional monies that we can say, hey, our board and councils have approved the funds available to get matched. And so that's what we're asking y'all to do, is to consider up to $450,000 for this high demand job training program.
Questions for Mr. Carter, gentlemen?
No, sir.
So in this case, the term kind of high demand, so in this case, it's the behavioral.
So roughly there's about 18 or 19 jobs out there that match that category of high demand job training, whether it be welding to nursing to CNC machining, those types. There's a list of those that you can use these programs for. We've not done this for WT before. We've done it for the school districts over the past. Some of the things that they've used it for, Amtech has used it for. They used it for their aviation program. They bought a flight simulator. Highland Park has used some for their ag department. Bushland and River Road in the past have used it for their welding programs, and Canyon has used it for their construction and manufacturing academy that they have. That's just some of the instances that they've used, because those are high demand jobs, according to the state.
The state defines those.
The state does define those. Yeah, it's in the high demand job training program.
Thank you.
Great question, though.
Any other questions for Mr. Carter? Okay, thank you, sir. Would ask for a motion on 9F, please.
I move to adopt a high demand job training agreement between AEDC, PRPC, and TWC as presented.
I'll second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes. Item 9G is our last one, Mr. Carter, if you'll show us this incentive agreement.
Okay. This is a item to consider approval for a location incentive agreement between Amarillo Economic Development Corporation and Brushwood Acre Farms Incorporated. Brushwood Acre Farms bought the piece of property at Farmers and Tradewind. So this is just east of Affiliated Foods on Farmers. It was kind of an abandoned farming greenhouse operation. They have totally transformed that piece of property. You can see on the left, those have all been completely redone, and they're working on the ones to the right of the screen. They have already produced peppers, lettuce, and tomatoes. Their main purchaser agreements are with Affiliated Foods. Brought them in, the company's from Idaho. What this would do is just a pure, simple job creation incentive. We would incentivize the company to do 25 new employee, and we would pay that out over 10 years, $1,000 per employee over a 10-year period as they perform. So no upfront money. They've spent close to $6 million, a little over $6 million to spruce up this facility and make it workable again, and have done a great job. We've toured it 3 times now, and they have done a tremendous job in making that look a lot better than it did. Certainly would answer any questions. It's just a simple, like I said, simple job creation incentive. No risk for AEDC. They would be paid as they perform and create these jobs.
Any questions, council?
Just to be clear, Kevin, so outside the city, we won't get any sales tax revenue or property tax?
You know, that's a great question, Councilmember Kraft. A lot of the jobs that the companies that we bring to you don't create sales tax. Just because most of the time they're either wholesalers, they're selling to another entity, so there's pass-through. Obviously, the employees that work there are going to create sales tax generation when they get their check and they pay. They go buy gas, they go buy groceries, but they themselves do not generate sales tax.
Any further questions for Mr. Carter? Would ask for a motion on our last item.
I move we approve item 9G as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item 9G. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Item passes with a 4-1 vote.
Thank you.
Hey, appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you guys for participating today in our meeting. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Second, you're adjourned. Thank you guys for being here. Just our little one.